The galaxy was silent, not peaceful, just tired. Every planet, every moon, every ship that floated in the dark carried the same scars of war. What was once full of life had turned into fields of ash and ruins of steel. The war between humans and the Zareth Empire had burned for decades, and when it finally ended, there was almost no one left to celebrate or even remember why it started. Private Eli Ward walked alone through one of those ruins, a dead alien city, broken and still. His boots made small echoes as he stepped over crushed stone and bones. His armor was cracked, the lights on his chest plate flickering weakly, and his rifle was almost out of power. He hadn't heard another human voice in weeks, maybe months. He had stopped counting days. The air was thick with the smell of dust and something else, metal and memory. He could almost hear the screams that had once filled this place, the sound of ships falling from the sky, the cries of both human and alien soldiers dying for a war. Neither side truly understood anymore. Eli had once believed in the cause. He had believed humanity was fighting for survival, for justice, for something greater. But now, looking around, all he saw was emptiness. The victory had cost too much. It had burned everything that made either side human or alive. He found what looked like a grand hall, its ceiling shattered, sunlight spilling through cracks. Broken pillars surrounded him, carved with strange alien symbols. In the center stood a massive throne made of crystal, cracked but still glowing faintly with blue light. Something about it made him stop. He didn't know why. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe loneliness. Then he saw a movement. At first he thought it was just debris falling from above. But then he realized something was breathing, a faint shimmer near the throne. Eli raised his rifle, his heart pounding. Slowly, from the shadow behind the crystal throne, a figure stepped forward. It was tall, graceful, and covered in silver-blue armor that looked almost like living metal. Her eyes glowed softly, golden and deep, filled with exhaustion and pain. Her wings, delicate but torn, dragged faintly across the floor. She looked at him not with anger, not even fear, but sorrow. Eli froze. He knew what she was immediately, a Zareth queen, the last ruler of the enemy species. His breath caught in his throat. Every soldier was trained to kill on sight. She was supposed to be the heart of the Zareth army, the one who led their hive fleets against humanity. But she didn't move to attack. She didn't even raise her claws. Instead, she just stood there, trembling slightly, like someone who had lost everything. Her voice came softly, echoing through the empty hall like wind through glass. "You survived." Eli gripped his rifle tighter. "So did you." The queen tilted her head. Her golden eyes studied him, and for a moment he felt she was looking through him, not at him. Then slowly she spoke again. "The war is over. There are no more armies, no more commands. Only dust." Eli didn't answer. His throat felt dry. He didn't know what to say. She looked weak, wounded maybe, but her presence carried something heavy, ancient, powerful. He had never been this close to one of them before. Finally, he said, "Then why are you still here?" The queen took a small step forward. "Because I was waiting." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and something about it, so simple, so human, made Eli lower his weapon just a little. "Waiting?" he asked carefully. She nodded slowly, her silver armor shimmering faintly in the dying light.
"Yes, waiting for
"You." Eli blinked, confusion flooding his mind. "Me? You don't even know me." The queen looked at him, her eyes soft but filled with emotion. "I do," she whispered. "I've searched the stars for your kind. For you, and now at last, I've found you." For a long moment there was silence. The sound of dust falling from the cracked ceiling was the only thing between them. Eli didn't understand what she meant. He didn't know why her voice trembled, why her gaze felt full of both pain and hope. But in that moment he realized something strange. He didn't feel hate. Not anymore. Not for her people, not for the endless war that had brought them here. All he felt was the heavy quiet of two broken worlds meeting for the first time in peace. The queen stepped closer. The light touched her face, revealing lines of exhaustion and scars like silver cracks across her skin. She looked fragile, almost human. "You are real," she said softly, almost to herself. "After all this time, after all the death, I finally found you, human." And for the first time since the war ended, Eli didn't feel alone. Eli didn't move. His finger hovered near the trigger, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. The woman, no, the creature, standing before him looked nothing like the monsters he had fought. She wasn't roaring or charging. She was trembling. Her golden eyes shimmered like tears were hiding behind them. For a long moment the two just stared at each other, surrounded by the ghosts of their fallen worlds. The silence between them felt heavy, almost sacred. Eli finally spoke, his voice low and rough from disuse. "Why are you waiting for me?" The queen took a slow breath. The sound was soft, like wind brushing across metal. "Because you are the last." "The last what?" Eli asked, frowning. "The last human," she said simply, "and I am the last of my kind." The words hit him harder than a bullet. Eli had suspected it for weeks, but hearing it aloud was different. It made the emptiness real. He wanted to deny it, to say there had to be others out there somewhere, but deep down he knew. Humanity was gone. He looked at her again, and for the first time he realized she carried the same pain he did. She too had lost everything, her people, her family, her world. They were not enemies anymore. They were survivors. Eli slowly lowered his rifle. The sound of metal touching stone echoed faintly in the vast hall. The queen's gaze softened. "You shouldn't have stayed here," Eli said finally. "This city's falling apart." "I know," she replied. "But where else would I go? The stars no longer welcome me. My kind is hated by all who remain." She walked past him slowly, her steps graceful but weak, like someone walking through memories instead of stone. She stopped near the broken window where the sunlight fell in golden streaks. The light danced over her armor, revealing the fine cracks and faded color. She looked less like a queen and more like a soldier who had fought too long. Eli followed her gaze out the window. The sky was red, stained by the burned atmosphere. "My people used to dream of conquering the stars," he said quietly. "Now we're just dust on someone's forgotten world." The queen turned toward him. "And yet here you stand," she said softly. "Still breathing, still fighting to exist. That is what made your kind special." Eli laughed bitterly. "Special? We nearly destroyed the galaxy." The queen's wings fluttered slightly. "So did we. That is why we are alike." For a while they just stood there in the broken light, two remnants of species that had burned everything for pride. It was strange, Eli thought, how peaceful the silence felt now. There was no hatred left to feed the fire, only exhaustion. He sat down on a fallen pillar, removing his cracked helmet. His face was pale, his eyes tired but sharp. "So," he said after a while, "what now? Do we just wait here until one of us dies?" The queen looked down at him. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with power but with something warmer. "No," she said. "We build something new, even if it is small, even if it is only for a little while." Eli stared at her. "You still believe that's possible?" "Yes," she whispered. "Because you are here." He didn't know how to answer that. It sounded absurd, two broken beings rebuilding what 1,000 armies couldn't. But there was something in her voice that made him want to believe, even for a second. "You said you were waiting for me," he said. "Why?" The queen hesitated. Her golden eyes grew distant, as if looking into memories older than this world. "Because once long ago your kind saved mine. One human a long time before the war came to our world. He showed us mercy when we expected death. He taught us peace and love." Eli blinked. "That's impossible. Humans only met the Zereth a century ago." She shook her head gently. "You forget how long we live. It was before your records began. Before your history learned to write our name." There was a tremor in her voice when she added, "He promised he would return one day. His spirit would find its way back to me." Eli frowned. "And you think that's me?" The queen looked at him for a long, quiet moment. Her expression softened into something almost human. "I don't think," she said. "I know." Eli opened his mouth, but no words came out. He wanted to argue, to laugh, to tell her she was wrong. But he couldn't. Because when she said those words, something deep inside him, something ancient, something buried, stirred. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, like a forgotten memory whispering from the dark. He didn't understand it. He didn't want to. But he couldn't ignore it either. The queen stepped closer, the faint hum of her armor echoing softly. She reached out one trembling hand and touched his shoulder gently. Her claws were cold, but her touch was careful, tender. "You are not him," she said softly, "but you carry what he was. His courage, his kindness, his soul." Eli looked up at her, speechless. For the first time, he saw no enemy before him, only a being as lost as he was. And in that silent hall, where two worlds had ended, something new began to breathe. Days passed, but time felt strange in the ruined palace. Eli didn't know if it was 1 day or 10. The sun rose and fell over the shattered crystal domes, but he barely noticed. The queen, the last of her kind, was always nearby. Quiet, graceful, yet fragile like glass. She spoke little, but her presence filled the hall more than words ever could. Eli had learned a strange kind of comfort in her silence. She never asked him about his past, his battles, or his losses. She only existed beside him, moving like a shadow he could not leave. And for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel completely alone. One morning he found her sitting near a pool of still water in the throne room. The sunlight touched her silver blue armor, making it shimmer like flowing liquid. She was cleaning her wings, repairing torn membranes with careful, deliberate motions. Each movement was full of grace, but there was sadness in her gestures, like a musician playing a song that could never be heard again. "Why do you stay here?" Eli asked quietly, stepping closer. She looked up. Her golden eyes softened when they met his. "Because this place, it remembers everything," she said. "Memories linger where battles were fought. I can feel them. And sometimes, I can feel the ones who once fought for peace." Eli sat beside her. "Memories?" he asked, curiosity mixing with fatigue. "There's nothing here. Only ruins." The queen's hand brushed the water, sending ripples across the surface. "Not nothing," she said. "Everything is still alive in a way. Pain, hope, courage. They remain in the air, in the stones, in the echoes of our voices. And you, human, you carry it too." Eli felt a lump in his throat. No one had spoken to him this way in months. No one had ever seen him like she did. Not as a soldier, not as a weapon, but as someone important. "You make it sound like I matter," he said, trying to joke, but his voice cracked. "You do," she replied softly. "Even now, when the galaxy seems empty, even when we are all that remains, you matter." Eli looked at her, really looked. Her armor bore scratches and scars from battles she could not have survived alone. Her wings were fragile yet magnificent, like glass stained with silver light. Her expression carried centuries of sorrow, yet she still had a spark, hope that refused to die. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why not another human, if there are any?" Her gaze softened further, almost to tenderness. "Because you remind me of someone who changed everything. Long ago, one human came to our world. Not as a conqueror, not as a soldier, but as a friend. He gave my people hope, even when we didn't know how to hope. You carry his blood, his spirit, in ways you cannot see." Eli shook his head, disbelief written across his face. "You mean to say, I'm like him?" The queen didn't answer with words. She only extended her hand, reaching toward him. Her touch was careful, delicate. The warmth of her fingers grazed his cheek, and he felt something he had not felt in years. A connection deeper than words, older than history. "You don't have to understand," she whispered. "You just have to be here, that is enough." Eli closed his eyes for a moment. In her presence, he felt the weight of war lift, even if only slightly. There was no hate, no fear, no command to kill or survive, just the quiet assurance that someone somewhere truly cared. That night, Eli stood on the shattered balcony looking at the dying stars. She came beside him, silent as ever, letting the darkness wrap them both in its quiet embrace. "You don't have to fight alone," she said softly. "Not anymore," he exhaled slowly, the first real breath of relief he had taken in months. "I haven't had anyone beside me for a long time," he admitted. "Then stay," she said simply. "Not because I need you, but because we both deserve something more than this emptiness. Something new." Eli nodded. He didn't fully understand what she meant. He didn't know if it was hope or destiny or something between them that words couldn't capture. But he felt it. Something stronger than fear, stronger than loneliness, something that told him that, even in the ruins of two dying civilizations, there was still a spark of life worth protecting. The queen turned her gaze toward the stars. Eli looked where she looked. Together, in the quiet darkness, they stood on the edge of a galaxy that had been broken. But for the first time, they felt the possibility of rebuilding, and Eli knew, even if he didn't yet understand her words fully, that he would follow her, not as a soldier, not as a survivor, but as someone who had finally found a reason to keep living. The night was long, but the bond they had begun to form glimmered like the first star after a storm. And somewhere deep inside, both human and alien hearts whispered the same thing. They were not alone anymore. Eli awoke to a quiet hum of the ruined palace. The crystal domes above reflected the faint light of a dying sun, scattering it across the broken walls. He had slept near the throne room, where the queen had settled into a corner of the shattered hall. She moved with a quiet purpose, gathering shards of broken crystal, arranging them into small patterns that only she seemed to understand. "Why do you do that?" Eli asked, his voice hoarse from sleep. The queen paused, her golden eyes lifting to meet his. "Because memories linger here," she said softly. "Every battle, every promise, every act of courage. They remain in the air, in the stone. I want to honor them." Eli studied her. She looked fragile, yet regal, like a statue carved from life itself. "You speak of memory like it is alive," he said, "like it can watch and wait for someone." "That is exactly what it does," she replied. Her voice trembled slightly as though each word carried centuries of loss. "There is one memory that matters most to me. One human, who changed everything for my people. Long before the war, before hatred, before everything fell apart." Eli frowned. "Changed your people?" The queen nodded. "He taught us peace. Not with force, not with orders, but with trust, compassion, and courage. My kind had never known such things. We had never been shown mercy. And he gave us hope. Hope we thought we had lost forever." Eli's heart began to beat faster. "And this human, he is gone?" She looked down, her voice breaking. "Yes. He vanished centuries ago. But he promised he would return in another form, at the right time to guide those who came after him." Eli shook his head. "That sounds impossible. You mean, I'm supposed to be him?" The queen did not answer immediately. Instead, she led him to a small chamber, hidden behind the ruins of the throne. There she revealed a flickering hologram, dusty and old, showing a human, tall, brave, with eyes that seemed familiar even across time. "Do you see him?" she whispered. "He is your ancestor, your spirit, your bloodline. You carry his courage, his hope, his soul." Eli stared at the image, disbelief mixing with awe. The resemblance was uncanny, his own reflection in the past. He took a step closer, unable to look away. This can't be real." The queen's hand brushed the hologram gently. "It is real. Every word, every promise. That is why I have waited so long, watching, searching, across centuries and light years, for one human who carries his essence. And now, I have found you." Eli felt a shiver run down his spine. He had never considered himself important. He had survived wars, lost friends, and wandered the stars alone, believing his life was meaningless. And yet here was a being, the last of her kind, telling him that he mattered, that he had been chosen, not by force, not by duty, but by destiny. "Why me?" he asked, voice barely audible. "I'm just me. I don't know if I can live up to this." The queen's eyes softened. "You do not need to be him. You only need to be yourself. But know this. In you is the courage that once changed a world. In you is hope, even when the galaxy seems empty. And I will follow your lead because I trust you. I believe in you." Eli felt tears prick at his eyes. He had fought so long, carried so much, and felt so little connection to anything. But now, staring into her golden eyes, he felt the weight of generations lift from his shoulders. He was not alone. He had a purpose, not because of orders or war, but because he carried the legacy of someone who had given life to hope. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say nothing, she replied. Only promise me this, that you will keep moving forward, that you will protect hope, as he once did, that you will survive, not just for yourself, but for everyone who cannot. Eli nodded, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. For the first time, he felt the weight of destiny not as a burden but as a gift. He felt connected, to her, to the past, to something bigger than the ruins around them. The Queen stepped closer, placing her hand on his shoulder. Her touch was gentle, almost human, and yet it carried the authority of a ruler who had survived millennia. You are the human I have been searching for, she whispered. And now that I have found you, perhaps the galaxy has a chance to live again. Eli looked at her, his fear and loneliness slowly giving way to determination. Then, let's make it count, he said, voice stronger than he expected. The Queen nodded, a faint smile breaking through the centuries of sorrow etched on her face. Together, in the shadow of fallen civilizations, they began to imagine a future that neither human nor Zareth had dared to dream before. And in that quiet chamber, surrounded by echoes of the past, Eli realized something incredible. Even in a galaxy of ruins, even when hope seemed impossible, life found a way through courage, trust, and the bonds that defied time itself. The quiet of the ruined city did not last. Eli was repairing his rifle, the metal of the weapon warm under his hands, when the first flicker of movement appeared in the sky. Shadows of ships, small, fast-armed raiders, streaked across the horizon. His chest tightened instantly. He knew them from the outer systems. Scavengers, mercenaries, anyone willing to kill for profit. They did not care about war, peace, or the history of species. They only wanted blood, and they wanted the Queen. The raiders, Eli muttered, rising to his feet. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but anticipation. He had survived countless battles, but he had never fought to protect something so precious, so fragile. The Queen appeared behind him, silent as a shadow. Her wings unfolded slowly, their faint glow casting light on the cracked walls. They will not stop, she said softly. If they find me, I cannot survive alone. Eli glanced at her, seeing the faint tremor in her armor. She was regal, terrifying, yet vulnerable, and in that moment he knew what he had to do. Then we fight together, he said firmly. Her golden eyes widened. No, human. You could run. You could survive if you leave now. He shook his head. I don't run anymore. Not when something worth protecting is here. The raider ships landed on the outskirts of the ruined city, kicking up dust and debris. Eli and the Queen moved to the shattered plaza. He raised his rifle, the weapon humming as it powered up. She stretched her wings fully, her energy glowing bright against the dim light of the dying sun. Together they were a small force, but one that carried hope far heavier than numbers could measure. The first wave of raiders approached. Alien weapons glinted in the sunlight, but Eli moved with precision, each shot taking down the closest threat. He was not just a survivor. He was a human at his finest, fearless and relentless, embodying the courage his ancestor had carried centuries before. The Queen's wings blazed as she took flight, striking the raiders with bursts of energy that melted metal and cracked armor. Her voice rang out over the chaos, a command, a warning, a cry of survival. Together, human and Zareth moved as one grounded in trust, one in legacy, one in the desperate will to protect life. Eli ducked a volley of plasma fire, returning shot after shot, feeling his muscles scream but refusing to stop. The raiders had numbers, but he had purpose. Every time he saw a threat move toward the Queen, his aim never faltered. She was not just a comrade. She was the last of a people he had grown to respect, to care for. By the time the first wave of raiders fell back, Eli was bleeding, his armor scorched, his rifle dented and smoking. But he stood. His chest heaved. His eyes met hers, and for a moment there was no need for words. They had survived. The raiders regrouped, a final desperate charge. Eli knew this could end badly. He turned toward the Queen, ready to make a last stand. "Stay behind me," he shouted. "No," she replied firmly. "We fight together, always." And so they did. Side by side, human and Queen, a living embodiment of hope against extinction. Every shot, every strike, every movement was a testament to their courage, to the fact that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, life could resist annihilation. The final raider fell and silence returned to the city. Dust and smoke hung in the air, the glow of the dying sun casting long shadows over broken metal and cracked stone. Eli fell to his knees, exhausted, his body screaming in pain but alive. The queen landed beside him, her wings folding around them like a protective cocoon. She knelt, her eyes soft with concern. "You risked everything," she said. "For me." Eli managed a weak smile. "No, not just for you. For hope. For what comes next." Tears glimmered in her golden eyes. She reached out, her hand gentle, placing it on his shoulder. "You are human," she whispered. "And yet, you carry the spirit of a hero older than you know. I have waited centuries for this day, and now it has come. I am grateful. More than I can say." Eli's hand found hers. Despite his wounds, despite the exhaustion, he felt a warmth spreading through him. It was not just victory. It was connection. It was trust. It was the start of something new. Something neither human nor Zareth had dared to imagine in centuries. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold, Eli and the queen stood together, looking at the remnants of the world around them. Broken, scarred, and silent, yet somehow alive. And in the quiet, Eli knew, whatever the galaxy threw at them next, they would face it together. Human courage and Zareth wisdom side by side against all odds. Hope, fragile but unyielding, had returned to the ruins. The city lay in silence after the raiders fled. Smoke curled from broken buildings and dust floated through the golden light of the dying sun. Eli sat on the cracked stone of the plaza, his body shaking from exhaustion. Every muscle ached, every breath was a struggle, but his mind felt clearer than it had in months. He had survived. He had protected something precious. The queen approached slowly, her wings folding gracefully around her. The faint glow of her armor illuminated the dust in the air, making her seem almost ethereal. She knelt beside him, placing her long, delicate hand on his shoulder. Eli flinched slightly at the touch. It was cold yet comforting, almost like the calm after a storm. "You are alive," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You fought for me, for us, for hope itself." Eli tried to stand but sank back down with a groan. "I didn't fight for you," he said weakly, though he didn't sound convincing even to himself. "I fought for what should have lived, for what's worth saving." The queen's golden eyes glistened. She reached up and brushed a strand of dust-laden hair from his face. Her touch was soft, gentle, almost human in its tenderness. "You are beautiful, human," she said quietly. "Not because of how you fight, but because of what you carry inside. Courage, kindness, hope. I've waited so long for this day. For you." Eli swallowed hard, his throat tight. He had never heard words like this spoken to him. Not in his childhood, not in his training, not in the quiet hours after battles when only silence had been his companion. His hand instinctively reached for hers, their fingers brushing. The warmth that spread through him was unfamiliar and yet deeply welcome. The queen leaned closer. Her wings wrapped partially around them, shielding them from the ruins, from the harsh light, from the world outside. She pressed her forehead to his, her golden eyes locking with his. "I've finally found you, human," she whispered again. "After centuries of waiting, after galaxies of searching, you are here. You carry the spirit of the one I lost long ago, and now you are mine to hold, to protect, to cherish." Eli's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, but words failed him. His lips trembled. His hands held hers, not wanting to let go. For the first time in a lifetime, he felt seen. Not as a soldier, not as a survivor, not as a weapon, but as someone important, someone worth loving. "Why me?" he asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm not special." "I'm not—" The queen placed her hand firmly over his heart. "Stop," she said softly but firmly. "You are special. You carry what humans once had: hope, courage, love. You have survived when so many fell. You have endured when so many gave up. And now you are here, with me. That is more than special. That is miraculous." Eli felt tears sting his eyes, the weight of exhaustion, relief, and emotion converging in one fragile moment. He closed them and leaned into her touch. The queen wrapped her arms around him fully, holding him with strength he had never imagined she possessed. Her wings shivered as she embraced him, her warmth seeping into him like sunlight through ice. I've waited, she whispered against his ear, her voice breaking with emotion. I've waited so long to feel this. To hold someone, a human, someone who understands, who protects, who cares. I thought I would never see it again. I thought it was lost forever. Eli's tears fell freely now. He couldn't speak, couldn't form words that mattered. He only held her back, feeling the reality of the universe shift. All the pain, all the war, all the loneliness. The moment made it vanish, replaced by connection, by trust, by something so raw and powerful, it shook him to his core. You saved more than me today, she whispered. You saved hope. You saved life. You saved me. Eli's hand moved to her cheek, feeling the soft metallic texture of her skin, and he finally whispered, Then, I guess I finally found you too. The Queen's arms tightened around him. Her golden eyes glimmered with tears, reflecting the last light of the dying sun. And I will never let you go, she said. Never, not ever. For the first time in centuries, the Zareth Queen smiled freely. For the first time in his life, Eli felt a peace so complete, so profound, that it erased the weight of every battle, every loss, every scar. Two broken beings, human and alien, clung to each other in the ruins of a galaxy that had almost forgotten how to care, how to hope, how to love. And in that embrace, a fragile promise was born. A promise that no matter how broken the universe might be, life could endure, hearts could heal, and hope could rise from the ashes. The battlefield was silent. Smoke curled from the ruins, and the last streaks of sunlight painted the shattered city in gold and red. Eli lay resting against a cracked pillar, his body battered but alive. The Queen sat beside him, her wings partially folded around them both, shielding him from the harsh wind and the cruel emptiness of the world outside. For the first time in centuries, she felt something she had thought lost forever. Peace, and it was because of him. Eli, she whispered, her hand brushing his. You